All right. Welcome to the Ultra High Net Worth Clients Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Broadhead. We started this podcast as a way to create a central resource of the best financial advisor practice growing tips shared by the most outstanding advisors in the industry, of which our guest today is definitely one. These outstanding financial advisors agree to be on the show and provide a ton of value for free, all in the hopes that our audience might learn from their words. My father was a financial advisor, and financial advisors are the main clients we serve. So my marketing agency's mission is to help every financial advisor grow their business in an effort to help the world become more financially secure. Today, we have the rare pleasure of talking with an incredible financial advisor, Rob Schultz. Rob, can you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you?
Yeah, sure. So it's Rob Schultz. This is my 25th year in the business. I'm a partner with NWF Advisory, a hybrid RA out of Los Angeles, California. But I serve clients across the country. My focus, I work on a team with two other advisors, one my senior, one a couple of years younger than me. And we serve a lot of physician clients. That's our target niche. And then also just being in Los Angeles, a lot of entertainment and media clients as well.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Awesome. All right. Lot to dig into here. So I usually like to start the interview with kind of the genesis of your start in this industry. So how did you get involved in this wild industry?
Yeah, sure. So I was actually thinking about going to medical school, kind of a little tired of some of the chemistry stuff, felt a little dry. Then looked at public accounting where my father was, and but kind of missed the personal connection there. So transitioned as I was taking some of the CFP prep courses. So I figured financial planning was a good mix of the technical side of finance, but the personal relationships that go along with personal financial planning. So that was the pivot for me. And so I started in the business, did a quick internship with my current firm as a compliance intern for 6 months just to learn a little bit about the business, and then started, from scratch, starting out cold calling baby names just because, I didn't have a natural market. I was 21 years old, got some clients there, and then was fortunate enough to partner with a advisor a little over 10 years my senior who had some relationships at some hospitals. And that was great because he had some of these contacts, which I did not have, but I had the time. And so I took these contacts and created some financial planning education for young physicians in the LA County hospitals. And then that was really successful. Then I took that and expanded it across the western part of the country from Washington to Vegas and just replicated these educational seminars that I had created with my partner, Craig.
Awesome. So how did you get connected with your partner, Craig?
Yeah, he just, we had a good connection. He saw that I was young and hungry in the business, looking to grow my business. And he said, I could use a little bit of help. And so it was a great match because he had those connections. And then I was willing to, try to grow my business. And so, I used his connections and then my ability to go out and farm for new business.
Hmm. Awesome. And how did you figure out that these educational seminars would connect and convert these physician clients?
Well, there was the response afterwards was really a light bulb as far as how much the need was there because we would give these talks and we'd talk for 45 minutes, have some Q&A, and people would sit around literally as long as we were willing to stay there because they had so many questions because there's just no financial education in medicine. You go through medical school, residency, most people with no education at all on running a practice, managing your student loan, just any sort of financial planning.
Hmm.
And so that's so missing. And especially with student loans being such a burden on people coming out of medical education, they're very concerned about this. And so there was this need, and it is an area where we were uncompensated for a lot of the advice that we gave because consulting on student loans, unless you're charging hourly, um, is there's no reward in it. But what we did get was these fantastic long-term clients that understood that we gave up some of our time at the beginning to develop the relationship, gain the trust, And then over time, you know, they really appreciated that, and we had this great connection. So now over the last 2 decades, those people have become clients and stayed clients and are normal paying clients with significant assets with us.
Hmm. Awesome. And what but besides the obvious, doctors are generally paid a high salary. What was it about this particular niche, this type of client that interested you?
Sure. Well, they have a very compressed time frame for work, so they don't start until their 30s. So a lot of them were already feeling a little apprehensive because they'd seen their friends from college that had been in the workforce for maybe 8 years making some good money, and they were just starting to make some money. I mean, the resident salaries when I started were like $35,000 a year for, a trained physician with an MD behind their name or a DO, and they were still working kind of what we joked for minimum wage. Um, we were kind of working for minimum wage too, helping them out. But over time, it worked out well. So you've got a delayed start date, a negative net worth going in, and then you need to start working very hard. And so you have minimal time to focus on your own personal financial planning. So, you really need some help with that.
Okay. So it was just that this particular segment was very in need of your services, which drew you to them?
In need, and there was some specialized advice like the student loan planning that is not everyone needs it, and not everyone has such an urgent need for it with that much debt. And
Hmm.
there was some of these public service loan forgiveness programs, which really could boost them in getting out of debt. And so having the ability to navigate those was also a key area of interest for the client, and an area that we became experts in just out of necessity.
Got it. Got it. So it it sounds like when you were first starting to work with this type of client, you're kind of onboarding them when they have almost negative money. It sounds like, right?
Yeah,
They
absolutely. Yeah,
so
the net worth
that's kind of
statement's
a
negative, right? But
yeah.
that's where we talk to them about their ability to go earn income is their most important asset. So you
Hmm.
might have 20 or 30 years of the ability to make a couple $100,000 a year, but it's a more abstract concept that your ability to walk out the door into that office setting and make $300,000 a year for 30 years, that is your most important asset.
Hmm. That just that kind of turns all of the you know, landing pages and scheduling links we create for our financial advisor clients. It's like, most of them have a minimum 500K to schedule an appointment, minimum million. It's
Yeah.
like the majority of your doctor clients who obviously have tremendous earning potential, they would be like, where's the one for negative half a million
Yeah, yeah. If
dollars?
you have a positive net worth, yeah, you're not eligible. And they really appreciate that. And we kind of said we're in residency with you during this time period. And over time, we've continued to work with the residents, and we don't, you know, our larger, more established clients take a lot more of our time. So we treat everyone fairly, but we don't treat everyone the same, because those residents might just need some initial student loan consulting, and then they might need to save for a house and pay down some debt. So we might not actually do any business where we're investing money for them or doing some insurance until they're maybe 8 years into their practice. And so it is a delayed gratification, but they understand that because they've spent 4 years in medical school. They've spent, maybe 3 to 8 years in residency. So they understand that delayed gratification. So it's a concept that's very near and dear to them. So they understand that we're doing something for a long-term benefit for both of us.
Mhm. And are you right off the bat establishing the kind of relationship, or are these kind of one-off services to establish yourself as a trusted advisor?
Yeah. So, after the initial questionnaire, we'll do a student loan analysis if that's a concern, and then just do a couple bullet points. They might, for example, a lot of times the people starting out had a 403B plan and the default was a money market account. So we'd help them switch it to the target date fund. They might need some disability insurance because, as I was mentioning a few minutes ago, their biggest asset is their ability to go produce income. So that's really what you need to protect is getting them
Mm-hmm.
a resident disability program. If they had, obligations, a term life insurance, but that might have only been $25 a month or something very small. Um, so we would just create a small menu of here's the things we do now. And then when you hit these milestones, here's the things we'll do then. So let's say you start a family, have purchase a home. Okay, let's get you in trust in touch with an estate planning attorney. So it'd be just a one page. If we couldn't keep it to one page, it was too long. But we'd say, okay, here's your important things, prioritize those, and then here's the things we'll do kind of in these next couple phases of your life, to give them a little bit of a roadmap.
Got it. Got it. So, um, for any doctor listeners who are tuning in today, maybe they're in their residency right now. What is kind of the best advice you can give these folks from a financial perspective?
Mhm. Yeah, I would say having a plan for getting out of student loan debt. It doesn't mean you have to pay it off because if you're going towards the public service loan forgiveness, that's a plan, but it doesn't mean you just make the minimum payment. So having that plan first, and then it's an interesting transition because you're forced to be frugal because as a resident, you don't make all that much money, or as a fellow, but you are going to make some money over time. And then the it goes from being frugal to the ability and freedom to spend. So once they get out of training and start making some money, that's where it's a really big shift from having a negative net worth to having a good cash flow coming in. And people struggle with how much can I spend versus save? Do I need to save all of it? And I would say for our established clients, we probably spend more time talking them into and giving them the freedom to spend money versus save money because they're probably doing enough. And so that's where the financial modeling comes in, is creating this plan that says, okay, if you've done, this money, let's say in your 401k profit sharing and, some automatic investments into college account, your trust account automatically, that's going to meet your goals. And so anything that accumulates beyond your target reserve of 100,000 or whatever that number is for that person, that's money you can be free to spend. And because we don't want someone to take a vacation and feel guilty the entire time that they're derailing their financial future. So if we've quantified ahead of time that they have that money and that is truly excess money, that is theirs to spend and they can really feel free to do that, especially with couples. You typically will have someone who's a little bit more conservative and one who really wants to live for the moment. And coming to the middle ground for those couples is really important. And so if we can show that couple who's a little bit more conservative that and wants to save anything extra, that maybe that money is okay and you can take that trip, or give your kids riding lessons or whatever it may be, um, that's a great function where we act as almost like a therapist.
Yeah, I hear that quite often. Most of our financial advisor guests are like, yeah, I spent years training on how to ensure financial security and help folks thrive from a financial perspective. But I spent about 95% of my time essentially as a therapist.
Yeah, because burnout and divorce are probably the two most expensive things you can do in your career. And if
Oh
we can
wow.
have any part in, one with the couple situation, but then also quantifying that you don't maybe need to work extra shifts because you've got a plan that's going to achieve those financial goals, so you're not going to get burnt out. Or what we help a lot of people on is that transition to part-time work. So maybe our plan is to work till 60 and then have 8 years or so of just really satisfying work. You might not be making as much money, you might not even be saving any money, but you're just covering your monthly bills and letting everything else you've saved grow. But you're really enjoying this kind of tail end of your career, and that really can extend and avoid burnout.
Mhm.
That's real powerful.
Awesome. Awesome. So do you predominantly target the younger doctors like just coming out of their residency? Is
Yeah,
that when
we
you?
we have through our career, my partner Craig had started working with these younger physicians. They started to grow in their career. Then I started taking the younger physicians, and now we have an associate advisor, Willow, who is a very capable CFP, knows what she's doing, but she has a little bit more time to work with those people coming out of training. So
Mhm.
we might give a lecture at a hospital where, I will do the majority of the talk, but Craig and Will will do some of it. Um, so I'll give the talk, and then she does the follow up with those people, and she can be the person that transitions with them through their career. Who's about the same age. Um, Whereas the people I'm focusing more of my time on those people who are kind of my peers that I started with when they were in training, and I've just grown with them.
Mhm. Okay, got it. And the kind of primary way you get on their radar and establish that relationship is the educational seminars like at
Yeah,
the hospitals or where?
yeah, or at a association like the American College of Obstetrics and Gynecology. I've done some talks for, um,
Hmm.
and the people that are now the attendings at these hospitals were people we probably met when they're in training. So they might be in charge of the department, and they're like, "Man, Rob, Craig, and Will have really helped me the last, you know, 10 years in my career. I want to benefit the people that I'm now in charge of educating and having that as part of their curriculum. Let's bring them back in and show these new people kind of some of the tips that were helpful for me in the last 10, 20 years of my career."
Okay, wow. So the senior physicians actually refer you to uh the next up and coming classes of
Correct. And they might be in
physicians?
charge of scheduling that curriculum because they
Wow.
realize that there's not anything in the curriculum, and they are kind of frustrated. They're like, why don't we have this as part of our curriculum?
Hmm.
And so now that they're in charge of developing that curriculum, they will bring that and insert it in the curriculum.
Hmm. So you moonlight as a professor for physicians.
Occasionally, yes. I spend some time at academic institutions, yes, giving lectures around the country. I've given talks in, you know 20 different states now. It's really fun because you get to be the expert and bring all this experience that you've collected through 2 decades and say, okay, here's what's worked well. Here's some pitfalls I've seen, and it's just fun to be the subject matter expert in some areas.
Hmm. And what sort of I don't want to say like warnings or uh messages like what did their ears like perk up for when you say it?
Yeah, having the plan to pay off debt and having the structure there and knowing how to navigate that's one of the main things. Buying a house versus saving, that's also another concern, the rent versus buy
Hmm.
question. Um, and then how they're going to get compensated. They don't, a lot of them don't understand the contracts with the hospitals. Are they going to get paid based on production, a base salary, bonuses? What does partnership mean? Um, am I going to buy into a surgery center at some point? So these sort of things of how, they're just used to W-2. Every month they get, $4,000 a month after taxes and retirement contributions. But over time they're gonna have this much more complicated structure. Um, People go out of clinical medicine too. That's actually been a really big trend of late where people start in clinical medicine, but then they go on to, even a tech company or a pharmaceutical company. And so they have things like stock compensation, which is totally different from anything that most physicians are used to getting paid. They're not used to getting paid in stock from Amgen or any of these other pharmaceutical companies.
Hmm. Oh, well. I know my college roommate went through all of that stuff. All he did was study. We were in college and now he's now we're 39 and reaping the benefits.
Mhm.
He, you know, worked at a hospital and then actually bought into a practice. Is that part of the curriculum actually like, hey, here's what you may make working in a hospital, working in a private practice, working in
Yeah.
your own thing.
Yeah, absolutely. We do tailor it based on the type of physician that we're talking to. So we might give a talk like the last one I gave was for pulmonologies only. So there were people graduating from a pulmonology. So I kind of tailored it to them. But yes, we absolutely talk about practice purchase, um, different ways that they can be set up through income guarantees. We'll usually connect them with a contract lawyer too to help understand that. An area that they don't always understand is the benefit system. So we have a lot of people at the Kaiser system, and they have a really generous pension program. That program, though, is hard to quantify because it doesn't show up in your W-2. So knowing how much that pension contribution that they're going to start paying you when you're 65 years old is worth to you today is sort of an abstract concept. So trying to compare, a W-2 with a pension to maybe just a base W-2 with some bonus or to an independent contractor income, that's an area we focus on a lot. Like, what do you keep after you have to pay for your own malpractice, your health insurance if you're an independent contractor, and doing the math, like here's your FICA taxes that you would have to pay, here's the cost of setting your own health insurance up. There's no 401k match if you're an independent contractor, but there's some benefits too, and kind of doing a pro and con to each of those setups.
Hmm. Awesome, awesome. And within the medical practitioner field, are there specific types of doctors that you go after? Private practice,
Yeah,
surgeons, specific modalities that
not
seems.
necessarily. No, no.
No.
Some typically will need our help a little bit more, like anesthesia. They tend to be self-employed more than others, and so they'll have a higher need. Anyone that's an independent contractor, um, the primary care specialists tend to be more private practice or in an academic setting, a larger group. So they have more of their health insurance, retirement plans taken care of for them, and they unlikely to work in like a pharmaceutical, less likely to work in a pharmaceutical world. Um, but yeah, like our self-employed hospitalist, they need a lot of stuff from us because they don't have any employee benefits. So we kind of act as their outsourced HR department because they don't have a retirement plan. So we have to go figure out what the best retirement plan, maybe get them set up on individual health insurance if they don't have coverage to their spouse. Um, you know, put them in touch with a medical malpractice person, the life disability insurance, all that is not provided for them. Figuring out how to make estimated tax payments. Those things are areas that we would step in where maybe someone employed at a hospital would already have that package covered for them.
Okay, got it. I remember years ago, um, my when I was trying to figure out what I was going to do with my life, maybe in high school, I was like, maybe I'll be a doctor. And my mom was like, she's like, no, they have to deal with too much, paperwork, and they're always getting malpractice lawsuits. She's like, you should be a plastic surgeon because they make a ton of money and don't have to deal with as much frustration as your average doctor. Um, do you have you noticed that in the industry?
Within
Is
certain
that
practices, no. In the the lawsuit thing, it's much rarer than I would have thought going into it. We've had clients that have had suits, but in over 2 decades, I've never had a client that had an above practice limit judgment, so that went above and beyond their medical malpractice coverage. So it's never actually touched their personal assets. We do some planning for that, but it's never, fortunately, been an area I've had to worry about.
that's
Uh,
that's great.
But yeah, satisfaction comes not necessarily from the area of medicine. There's so many other factors, your family structure, your colleagues that you work with. They're so much more important than the type of medicine. We have people that are extremely satisfied in family practice and orthopedic surgery, and also those completely dissatisfied with their structure in both of those. So I would not say that the area of medicine is a determining factor.
Hmm. So it sounds like you can offer some direction or advice on how to maximize satisfaction in a doctor's profession. Any insights you are open to sharing?
Sure. Well, that's where quantifying the the amount of money For example, I had a couple who the spouse was laid off, and this was a discussion last week. She was laid off, and then so what we did was based on our plan. Her husband's also a physician. We backed into what she needs to make to support their household and keep everything on track. So we came up with a number that she has to make, and it's kind of basically a part-time job, and because she still wants to be a mom and be there for her kids. So we said, okay, you don't need to go take a job that's starting at 300. You're fine if you can just generate like 160 or so of income, which is basically a part-time physician job. You should meet all your goals and you'd be fine. And if your husband is able to increase his growth, you can maybe even cut back a little bit more. So we quantified what what needed to be done, and that can provide her the ability to get a job that will fit her lifestyle. And that was a very tangible example of where the planning helped guide the quality of life. So that's going to provide her the ability to work 25 hours a week and still be the mom that she wants to be.
Hmm. Oh, wow. That's great. So it sounds like, doctors are kind of, they're crushing it. Obviously school is, they're done around their 30s, early 30s, and then they're working until, hardcore until they're 50, and then they can kind of, just do what
Well,
satisfies them after that
sort of,
generally.
or have a better quality of life, but for longer. One of my
Mhm.
best clients, I encouraged him to take more time off because I was concerned he was getting burnt out. And what we ended up doing was doing a month of travel or off time out of the month. So
Mm.
he committed to doing a month not working every or sorry, a week not working every month, and that provides that refresh. His family has spent some great time with his family, but I mean, when he's in the office, he is one of my most productive clients that I have by a long shot. He's working real hard, taking call, fixing a broken leg in the middle of the night. But when he's off, and that balance works really well. It's like go hard,
Yeah.
then have some chill time.
Work hard, chill hard.
Mm.
Yeah. Is that unique to the world of doctors? This type of burnout. I mean, they're obviously very important. Someone breaks their leg, it's like you need a doctor. There's no really way around that. Is that I don't think I've heard of that from any other client and their niches.
Yeah, it is very common, and you just have to have the practice structure to be able to do that. An example would be a lot of the OB groups that are too small that don't have the ability to share or call, and so you've got three physicians, and you're working a lot of holidays and you're missing a lot of kids' time. So get it, and that's where I'm talking with someone kind of a training. I'm looking at okay, you've got a practice of two or three people. You might you're going to be working a lot and then sometimes that you don't want to work maybe and if your quality of life is number one most important and you've got a young family maybe the academic job or the Kaiser job where when that family comes in to deliver their baby you might not be the doctor on call, and if you're not you're staying home with your family and whoever's on call at the hospital at that time is going to deliver their baby. That's the expectation with that type of insurance arrangement, and that might be a better fit than you versus you being the person that no matter when that mom decides to deliver that baby, you are the person that's going to deliver that baby.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Yeah, that's great advice. It sounds like you've shared some great burnout reduction strategies. Do you have any others that come to mind?
Yeah. Yeah, I guess I feel like the divorce rate among my clients is significantly less than the average population. So I hope
Mm.
that's some proof of the strategy. Um, yeah, picking the right job, being able to say no to the jobs that aren't the right fit, working a schedule that fits your needs, and then working a little bit longer for maybe less money is probably better than working harder and then stopping. Because especially those people that work really hard and then stop, that also is a tough transition because you go from being the boss, having 10 people that you can instruct to do whatever you want, to being home with your spouse with plenty of free time. And that's also a difficult dynamic because your spouse might not like that if you come home and give them orders like you would your nurse practitioner, for example.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. That's that would be a tough transition. I don't
Yeah,
think spouses
no,
take to that.
they don't work for you. That's that's usually what
Yeah.
they hear back.
Yeah. That's awesome. You are the first guest we've had on that really focuses um almost entirely on physicians. So this is fascinating. Just just how different you can serve a type of client. This is great.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Um,
Yeah, you can't, there's a lot of financial advisors and, there's people that specialize in this. I think the best advisors specialize in a specific niche because you can really go deep into that area.
mhm,
And I always tell them that, my physician clients, I didn't go to medical school to to deliver my kids. I outsourced that to the obstetrician. They did their job. Um, and also just as they might be an obstetrician, they're not going to do a knee replacement. So there's lots of financial advisors, but they're not all capable of working with, or at least as well with that one area.
mhm. Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. And I wanted to also touch on, you mentioned you also work with entertainment folks
Mhm.
because you guys are headquartered in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
Um, what's how is it working with those folks?
Yeah, a lot of we'll have a physician or the spouse might be, someone that works at, Amazon or Netflix or someplace like that or in production. And so just the nature of being in that area. The main difference there is you go from people like my physicians who might have a stable job that, they're not going to get fired from, right? There's no layoffs, because there's such a demand, to people with very uncertain incomes and boom and bust years. So it's quite a different setup. And so the main planning difference would be um, moving to much more cash reserves, a much more conservative financial plan because they don't know what's next. They could have a great
Mm,
year, but they might have a year of looking for work or trying to get their next project up and running or waiting to get hired in front or behind the camera on the next show. And so there's a lot more variability. So having less leverage in their life and also bigger cash reserves and emergency funds, it would be one of the key differences.
mm. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. How are you able to get on folks in entertainment's radar?
It's usually CPAs or spouses or family members of my physician clients because we don't do any public marketing. There's no billboard with my name on it.
Mm,
So it's just a word of mouth business.
mhm. Got it. And I would imagine their biggest concern is, hey, how long can I continue to look for work?
Yeah, and their time frame of work is not as long as maybe a physician. There is a little bit of aging out of the entertainment, especially in front of the camera, and some sort of age discrimination within that field. And so, trying
Mhm.
to make as much as they can to financial independence quicker is typically a goal.
Yeah, that makes sense. And at what point do you typically start working with folks in the industry? I
Yeah,
imagine it's not kind of right when they're coming out of film school.
no, but they'll go from nothing to kind of getting a pilot sold. So they might go from just, part-time income, where last year they were making lattes to, um, hey, I sold my pilot for $250,000. Now I've got a development deal. And, they go from a zero tax bracket to the highest tax bracket in the next year and everything changes. And they're like, all right,
Yeah.
what do I do? So I'll get a call from the attorney or a CPA and say, hey, you've got this client that's doing well now. They don't know anything about finances and you need to help them out. Kind of educate them because they probably know less than the physicians. I do have some really financially savvy entertainment clients, but that is the exception over the rule.
Yeah. Wow. That's awesome. Okay, and you mentioned how your partner kind of found you to assist in the education and bring on new clients process, and it sounds like you have continued that
Mhm.
tradition with Willow. How did you find her, and how did you know she was the right person for the role?
A good, obviously, technically, that you have to be technically proficient. So she had her CFP, she knew what she was doing, worked well with the clients, was very organized. So those two things were non-negotiable. And but learning how to work with the clients and interact with them, that's something that can be taught. And so that wasn't, you know, maybe something she was as comfortable with working with someone with, a good amount of money and a high income, but very easily adapted to that and, was doing great now. But it just takes some time. So,
Hmm.
so yeah, so we knew she knew what she was doing, so she wouldn't make recommendations that we were uncomfortable with. She really was going to put them on the right path, and she had the time and the confidence and the ethics to be a good advisor.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So obviously, it's very important to, maintain, um, I guess youth within an organization. Like if you just continue to grow in age, your clients will eventually be like, "Well, aren't you going to retire soon? Like, who's
Yeah.
going to watch my stuff?" So it sounds like it was a very important aspect to the business to have, the next generation in there, like thoroughly understanding the
Mm.
culture and the values and how y'all serve clients. To all the advisors out there listening who maybe don't have their next generation in place, when is the right time to bring like younger blood into the firm?
Sure. Yeah, we've kind of gone on a 10-year cycle here. So we've got a 50s. I'm in my 40s and Will is in her 30s. And I'm actively looking for someone to work in a paraplanner role that would be able to transition to a advisor role at some point. So I think that's maybe every 10 years or so, kind of each
Hmm.
generation. So maybe a little bit more than 10 years, but it's a huge issue in my business. There's a lot of older advisors. I mean, I go to conferences and I look around, I'm like, gosh, these people are right about to retire, and there's not a lot of really good advisors coming in. Fortunately, at our broker dealer, we've got a group of next gen advisors in their late 30s that I think are just incredible. But that's the exception there. I think
Hmm.
there needs to be a lot. The demand is huge, and so with so many advisors retiring, and there's not these training programs, I think the focus would be on a team approach because starting out as a young advisor by yourself in today's world seems very daunting. So coming in with advisors like myself and Craig who have can sort of be the rainmaker and the instructor, and then the younger advisor can be the time and the hours and the ability to really kind of spend the time with those clients and doing research and doing the planning. That's a great mix.
Hmm. Awesome. Awesome. Well, Rob, this has been awesome. I am not surprised at all of you and your team's tremendous success, and it doesn't sound like you guys are slowing down one bit. So, want to thank you for taking the time to talk to me and my audience today.
All right. Thank you, Chris. Appreciate it.
Yeah, yeah. So I'd like to end the show with one final question. It is an open-ended question, and you can take it in any direction that you like. And the question is, what are you working towards?
Sure. Oh goodness. Well, on a business side, creating scalability, that's probably my number one thing, and we're doing that with the next generation of advisors, being more efficient in our practice, and then a combination with the personal life is mixing the business. I've got the people I want to work with now, and it's been a great trend. If you work with the people that you want to work with, the people that come to you from those people, since we're only word of mouth advertising, tend to be like those people that I want to work with. And so, I'm out playing pickleball with clients. I go mountain biking. Sometimes we'll do a client meeting. I've had them on hikes. I've had them on paddle boards. I've had them on pickleball courts. And like I just scheduled a meeting for next month where we're going to meet at the client's house and go over to their pickleball club and play. So that combination of having understanding and being part of their life, don't necessarily have to be their best friend, but just being part of their life and understanding what is important to them outside of work. And it's great because it makes it enjoyable for me too. So,
Hmm.
so that's sort of where I'm trying to go, is trying to have those relationships that transcend the finance one and into the personal and help with their, I love it, especially if it's active. Obviously, you see that's a theme behind those, but we do some, we've done cooking classes with clients before wine tasting too, but being, active is a key part because I think that's important to success too, is to have your physical health as well.
Yeah. I wonder if there's some inherent love with financial advisors and pickleball, mountain biking, and paddleboarding. Because my dad, financial advisor for 30 years, obsessed with all of those things.
Yeah, but you know where I'm different? I'm not the golf guy. I mean, I golf every once
Oh,
in a
he
while.
hates golf.
Yeah, yeah. I enjoy it, but it's just a lot of time, and my clients typically don't have 4 to 5 hours just to kill on a Friday. And if they do, they're either going to be in their office, or if they have that time, they're going to want to spend it with their family. And so, but if we can break away, for an hour, go on a hike, get their workout in, that's sort of the right amount of time to spend
Yeah,
on things.
yeah.
But 5 hours with guys at a country club, you're either you've got time, if you're either sacrificing time for yourself, or your family or your job. And a lot of times those people are already sacrificing for their job. And so if they don't want to necessarily sacrifice that additional couple hours because
Hmm.
they're just pulling from their family time.
Hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. The pickleball, those are you can get a lot of pickleball in an hour.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well, that's awesome. Rob, well, thank you again so much for taking the time. Where can my audience find out more about you?
Yeah, I mean, I do some blog posts on my website, Rob Schultz Wealth. I've and there's Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook links as well, just to post some things that I think are interesting over time, and it's got my contact information as well.
Hmm. Awesome. And we'll be sure to link those in the show notes and on the website. Rob, this has been awesome, man. I super enjoyed this. To all of our listeners out there, thanks so much for tuning in and keep on growing out there, everybody. See ya.